Every single set to say if we never.
Oh, yeah.
They work here.
Over there. I'm not in the way of your view, am I?
No, you're good.
Okay.
Hi, very nice to meet you. My pleasure. Wow, I was around all handsome men there. Although my husband's a handsome
I'm getting the Twitch back again. I used to be the Trustees. Yes.
Yeah, but that hasn't always been the case. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No, but I wanted to look at faces. No, I'm going to stay. I did check. I have 2 seconds to check my email. So let me give you the clip notes. Can you clip notes? Oh, is it? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. Well, since there's nobody else here, I'll call the meeting order. Pledge and see if we
Oh, you're good.
Can we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First, call roll, please.
Trustee Raga?
Here.
Trustee Hunford?
Here.
Trustee Oliver? Absent. Trustee Burgess? Absent.
Okay. We do not have quorum. I actually called the Attorney General's office today to plan for anything that could possibly happen tonight. I wasn't sure that if we now only have 4 members of the board, if quorum is considered if we have 2 or 3. Based on my discussion with the Attorney General earlier today, we do have to have at least 3 members in order to have quorum for the meeting to be called to order and for us to continue with items on the agenda. What I also asked if it was still okay for us to stay here and meet in what will be called just an informal gathering at this point until we have another member of the board to show up. We don't have quorum, so we cannot essentially have a meeting. So what does that mean? That means the public policy comment that limits you to 3 minutes doesn't happen because we don't have quorum. Colsom, who is our clerk, usually has to be here for us to have a meeting. Right now we don't have quorum. If she's willing to stay around in case somebody else shows up, we have quorum, we can continue. At this point, unless Trustee Raga has any issue with it, we don't have any issues with hearing comments from the public, so we can try to obviously figure out what is going to be the best course of action to move forward with the supervisor at this point. Now, I don't know if Mr. Spina has any comments or if you need to correct anything that I've said.
No, I can only tell you what I told you today. According to the Open Meetings Act, a meeting is specifically defined as a majority of a quorum, and for a board of 5, the Open Meetings Act specifically says the quorum is 3. So as such, there is no meeting tonight. You guys are here, and to the extent that the town hall is open and someone's here to lock it up, there's nothing that stops you guys from sitting here and speaking with the public. But there is no meeting. It's my understanding that there's been emails from the 2 trustees that they both could not make it tonight. So I'm going to leave because there's nothing here. And you guys can do what you want. Coulson, you're done. If you want to stay, it's up to you.
No problem. And if there's anyone at this time that wants to speak, just let us know. And all right, she had her hand raised first. Yes.
Sorry, I wrote it down so I can get it all out. My name's Tammy Horak, and I have been an employee at the assessor's office for over 30 years here. And this is the first time I've ever felt that I needed to come to a board meeting. Well, it's not a meeting, so to the public to hear what I have to say. If eventually you start to take applications and interviewing people, we'd also like to know what the process is how long the process is going to take. Because we have read online that without a supervisor position filled, that no checks are going to be issued, including paying the employees that work here. Most of the employees at the township have nothing to do with all the ongoing issues. Yet now it seems that it's affecting all of us. We are not the politicians or elected officials. These are our jobs and our careers. I believe communication with the employees need to happen as well, and not hearing it through third party on Facebook. If we don't get paid, are we still expected to work? Is our insurance going to get paid? I know that most of the employees that work here would like to say that the personal and political agendas need to be set aside right now, and you need to appoint a supervisor. Also, in regards to our office, on the assessor side, if our vendors don't get paid, how are we supposed to work with our computer systems? We're in the middle of a quadrennial year reassessment, and putting us behind because of not getting paid is going to put the county behind, and our taxing bodies, and all of the districts that we serve. As the elected officials, by the people and for the people, as it's been said in these meetings, but in addition, you have an obligation to the employees that work here every single day to keep this government body working like it should. So please, put everything aside and find a supervisor as soon as possible, because the 15th is payday.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I would like to make a suggestion that you schedule a meeting just like this every night for the next 2 weeks until the other two people show up, so you can talk about appointing a supervisor. That way you can get people paid when you appoint a supervisor. I agree, there's no point in dragging it out for 60 days from last week, which is what, 53 days now, that we're going to have to wait just to have 54 days to have the electors have a meeting. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 paychecks that are going to be missing. As 2 full months of vendors not getting paid and incurring late fees. That's ridiculous. So my suggestion would be to write an agenda just like tonight's for every night, every day, Saturday, Sunday, until at least the 15th of February. To give the other ones a chance to get here. I agree, people need pay. But I also agree the law needs followed. We can't get paid if nobody's authorized to sign a check. Thanks.
Yes.
I've got, what I'm wondering too is, there's a lot of senior center people that were at the Levy Center. What effect does this have on that right now, the people over there? Are there going to be people working over there? Is that going to be open? How long is it going to be open and so on? I'm just wondering about that. Because that really helps a lot of the seniors. So, this will mention that.
And I'm writing comments as you guys are saying things, so I'm not ignoring anybody's comments. We're both trying to write the comments now, so. Anybody else? Yes.
I'd like to know why, as 2 elected officials and the other 2, you guys can't solve the problem. Why can't you work together and do something about the situation? You obviously caused it. Now you need to do something about it. It's ridiculous. And you're elected officials, and in my opinion, you shouldn't even have an office with your behavior.
Yes, sir.
I want to second the comments made by the assessor's employee. I understand the stress and strain that must be on the people who work for the township. And to address the other comments being said, and in light of that as well, it should be kept in mind that the fact that there isn't compromise right now may mean that you are doing your job. And that many of the comments people have tonight saying they need to move forward, they need to work together, should not be addressed to the two people who are present. I was here last week, and when the mention of a meeting tonight was brought up, no one said, I can't make it, let's find another date. It was simply ignored. And to the idea of, I don't know about having a meeting every night, but I do question their conflicts for this evening. And if you schedule another, I saw an alternative agenda originally online, there's all these agendas going back and forth. The fact that we had our supervisor resign under somewhat questionable circumstances, the remaining trustees, the fact that they may not be able to compromise mean that they may be doing their job perfectly, that there may be a difference in opinion, and that they are representing the best interests of everyone who elected for them. So we need to balance the rush to get it done with doing it right.
Amen.
I was very bothered last week when there were questions brought up as to legality, as to proper procedure, and instead of people saying, let's stop and make sure we get this right, people were trying to rush through and get something done. And that tells me, that makes me question their motives, that they didn't want to stop and get things done right. So I do want to see this resolved as best we can, as quickly as we can, but that may mean that it takes longer than people like.
Excuse me if I don't stand up, I'm tall and want to block everybody.
Okay.
Was any reason given why they're not here today?
I want to follow because I haven't answered anybody else's questions, so I'm writing them down.
Yeah,
What I can't answer, I will, and I actually even prepared a statement, so most of your questions may actually be answered in my statement. So I want to, I want to be fair, and I don't want to answer yours, and I didn't answer anybody else's. So, did you have anything else that you wanted to say?
Well, I mean, I asked because, the statements that were made after you guys walked out, it was a little bit of a circus here. It was amateur hour, and, even going against even the attorney seemed a little confused, and he even told them they should table it. They still wanted to push along with breaking the law. I'm not an attorney. I read what you read. You can go online and read it. And, I'm not surprised, but come on. Maybe that's why they're not here. Maybe it's embarrassment. I don't know. I'm just wondering if you knew. That's all.
Next. Yes.
I wrote my things down too, just so I wouldn't forget. I've been sitting on this for a couple weeks. No, it's fine. I'm not only disappointed that two trustees aren't here today, I'm also disappointed that you two left last week and didn't let the business of the township at least be tabled or get finished. We elected you to be here. It's your job to be here. I don't care if it's a special meeting on Birthday Cake Friday. It is your day to be here when there is a meeting of the township. As a constituent of DuPage Township, I am appalled at the lack of decorum many of you exhibit. Although the township receives a very small amount of my overall tax dollars, I expect more from all of you. You were all elected because we, the people, determined you were the best candidates for the position. I keep hearing that the township is needed because it is the most local form of government. Other than the monthly entertainment here, I'm starting to really question why. The infighting, poor behavior, Facebook accusations are telling me that you as a board cannot possibly work together. It's demonstrated here tonight. Half isn't here, last week half left. Township meetings are for getting the business of the township done, not for the hurling of accusations at one another, or what was done wrong in 2017, or 2016, or 2012, or when so-and-so got divorced. All of you are accountable either in the wrongdoing or the doing of nothing. Thank you.
Anyone else? Sir, gentleman in the back of the room.
Just a point of clarification for those that may not be familiar with the last meeting as to why two board members walked out. One of the agenda items clearly, as the law outlined, the action to be taken would have been the commission of a crime. And by staying, that would have made them a participant in that crime. And there's several legal opinions that have already been drafted, from what I understand, that confirm that. Now, one of the suggestions was, once he's appointed, he could resign It's called an ipso facto resignation. The problem with that is that's not possible because the statute says any such appointment is void if you had not resigned first. So there is no ipso facto resignation possible in that scenario by statute. I understand folks are upset that they walked out, but in reality, they prevented Mr. Burgess from taking a position that could subject him to a criminal felony. And I think that needs to be understood. That's all I have. Thank you.
I want to readdress that. Some members of this board seem to have no problems involved in wrongdoing and other criminal activities. I think the meeting should have been finished or tabled. You've wasted our time last week, you're wasting our time this week. Still no township business is getting done. Still people are not going to get paid coming up here soon. This matter is not going to be resolved by the 15th. All I can expect at this point is we keep scheduling meetings and 2 trustees show up and 2 don't. Or if someone doesn't like what's going on, people leave. I don't see how you can possibly work through this.
Anyone else?
Well, it seems to me that you're gonna have, it's gonna be 2 and 2. And then you're talking about advertising for appointment for people that would want that position. How would you go about doing that stuff? That's what I'm wondering too. How would that who would handle that advertising? How would that be handled? I don't understand.
Anyone else? Yes.
Maybe I was looking at some old statutes, but it seemed to me that I read, and I would ask for an opinion from the attorney on this. After 60 days of accepting the resignation of the supervisor, which you did 2 weeks ago, if no supervisor is appointed, and a special meeting of the public gets called, and the only criteria for the purpose of electing the supervisor, the only criteria that is that they emphasized was that it be a Republican because the seat was held by a Republican.
That's not true.
And so we have an annual meeting.
Anybody can.
Hold on, guys. I want everybody to be respectful. Dennis, I know I'll stay here as long as you guys need me to, but just let one person talk at a time because I am trying to take notes at the same time that you guys are speaking.
Okay. Well, the seat was held by a Republican, and that's what won, and a Republican has to fill the seat. The second thing, we have an annual meeting coming up in April on the second Tuesday. And if we do not have a supervisor at that point, maybe that would be the time to elect one.
Next. I was gonna wait until it's played. That way we're not going back and forth. I'm writing down the notes and hopefully I'll have a chance to address everything. You can address everybody's. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Morgan. I'm also from the assessor's office, and I certainly hope that it doesn't go 60 days as we do need to be paid. And I'd also like to point out how this looks to newer employees. We have a younger staff in our office, people who are new, and in the assessment field, it's a very niche field. Being that it is a quadrennial year, you don't want to chase employees away by having this drama that's going on in the township. It's pretty embarrassing, and as a younger person, to watch older professionals acting like this, it's very concerning, and the Facebook drama is absolutely ridiculous. So I hope that you guys follow this gentleman's suggestion about hosting a meeting every day until this is resolved.
Anyone else?
One other thing, I was thinking, maybe in the future, there should be 5 members on the board, where there's maybe more of a chance you're gonna have a quorum. With 4, you're gonna get a 2 and could be 2 and 2 a lot of times. With 5, at least you got a chance of having a quorum.
All right, sir, you back?
Yeah, just as a point of clarification, for those that aren't familiar with the appointment process, the party affiliation only applies to the first 60 days. If you don't fill in that 60 days, then the electors can call a meeting and anybody can be appointed no matter what political affiliation. And it's
Even a current trustee.
even a current trustee, because it's the people making the appointment, not the board.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, I agree with them, because when it goes to a town meeting, it is no longer an appointment, it's an election.
That's right. Absolutely.
Anyone else?
Can I
Oh, sorry. Somebody mentioned, do we still show up for work? You know, my personal opinion is, this isn't like the federal government shutdown where certain people are mandated to show without getting paid. However, even those people that didn't have to show and work without getting paid in the federal government, I believe, still got their paychecks. That would not be the case in a local government, because you only get paid for the work that you do. So, you know, my personal opinion, if I had a job here, I would still show, because I would know that eventually, when a supervisor got appointed, that I would get paid for every bit of time that I worked.
Anyone else? Yes.
Just for people who may not know, we're getting to the end of our fiscal year too. Last year we had an issue where some bills didn't get paid and then they bump over into the new year, and that messes up your budget too. So I hope everybody keeps that in mind too, along with getting paid. Because my mortgage is due and my kids' tuition is due and my car payments are due.
Anyone else?
I have one more thing. I've been reading up a lot on House Bill 3133, which died on the floor. It is for the dissolving of townships. I don't know if it's good or bad, but nothing that I see here makes me want to say that this is good or there's nothing about DuPage Township working for me, for you, or for anyone else I know right now. They're working, I think, for themselves, not 100%, but I'm not pleased with anything that I see here at all.
Can I just make a comment on that?
Not the assessor.
No, I know. We've actually.
And don't raise my taxes.
We've actually gone down to Springfield to talk about that bill. And what a lot of people don't realize is, you know, they say it's easy to get rid of townships. Other people will absorb that. Sure, other people are going to absorb that, but we're the cheapest form of government that there is, and we do more locally than if our job was to go to the county. I can guarantee that your taxes will go up for them to take our office
I'm sure.
and have to use it. So to use if people use the excuses, oh, my taxes will go down if we get rid of townships, that is totally not true. Just wanted to put that out there, because that's out there a lot. We are the most accessible form of government that there is.
And I agree with that. However, there's not much governing going on here.
That's true.
It's just bickering and infighting between two political parties, and
Yep.
Okay,
I
yes.
think I would just like to echo what they've said. Obviously, Tammy has made clear how important the assessor's office is. But yes, to the public, it does look like this is just a joke going on. So if you want to uphold the integrity of townships, you guys really need to step up.
I actually honestly say they are holding the integrity of the township.
Oh, I agree. I appreciate these two being here. But as a board,
I
they
have
need to
300
come
texts.
together.
I have 300 texts on my phone from Mary Pat Oliver as to what was going on in every executive session and what is wrong with this township. And no one had the guts to do what was right for us taxpayers, except these two that I've watched every week take a beating for doing and standing up the right thing. I can value everyone's opinion, and I understand it, but unless you're in their shoes and you know the private and personal stuff that's going on that we don't, please don't be so easy to criticize them. Bravo for standing up.
Yes.
I feel like that was a little bit directed toward me, so I just want to say I appreciate you two showing up. I think it's very immature that the other board members did not.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's the purple shirt, right? Very bubbly.
I have heard them get bashed week after week for doing the right thing.
She apologized to you.
Sir?
I'd
like to.
Yes, please.
Hold on, everyone.
Once you get done running through all that and telling us what else you learned from the Attorney General's office and making other statements, I'd just like to ask that we have a chance to ask clarifying questions when we get done. Maybe not another round of comments, but I do have a lot of questions I want to make sure get answered or at least addressed after you've already provided the answers.
Okay, okay. Any other, yes, sir?
Have you actually got an opinion from the Attorney General's office as far as pay for the employees? I know someone mentioned the Township Officials Association that they checked with, but they're not official. You know, they're an organization. They're not the government. So has anybody actually checked with the Attorney General's office to see what the situation would be?
Okay, I wrote it down. Go ahead.
I want to go off of his question because I also looked into some things in the last week. And doesn't the township have an emergency situation where if there is a situation like this to where the people that work for the township do get their paychecks? So they're not like the federal government having to go without paying, risking their houses and everything else. There's got to be some type of statute, the Attorney General or something. There's got to be some type of emergency in there that can take place until this thing gets situated.
Sir?
This is my third time. Thanks. This has happened before in Illinois. Shelbyville Township, a year or two ago, had the same thing. Right after the election, the supervisor resigned. Nobody would volunteer to be appointed supervisor, or the ones that did could not get bonded. So they had to wait the 60 days. The state representative from that area put forth a bill to fix the problem, to either allow the appointment of a temporary supervisor for a term of, whatever, 60 days, or it might have even included allowing the senior trustee and the clerk to sign the checks. I'm not sure exactly the wording of the bill, but it died and went nowhere. So my suggestion is contact your local state representatives and state senators and ask them to put forth a bill that would fix this problem in the future. And as a matter of fact, township officials of Illinois were the ones that essentially put a screeching halt to that bill. They did not want it fixed. When we found out the situation in Shelbyville Township, we attempted to get it fixed for future townships, and everyone's put a stop to it.
Any other questions? Any other comments?
Thank you.
Okay, so did you have anything you wanted to say?
Well, go
Because I can talk forever. Okay, so.
I
Now.
guess one other question. What do you plan the next meeting?
Okay. Okay, so give me the floor for just a couple minutes, and I wrote down everything, and I honestly think I have an answer to most of your questions. That's why I was just trying to get everybody's questions so we could get through that part, okay? So let me start with this. Immediately following our January 15th meeting when the supervisor resigned, I believe it was that Friday, I placed a phone call to Mr. Spina. I had a discussion with him, and I told him that I did not think we would be able to sign checks once we had officially accepted his resignation at an upcoming meeting. He resigned in the middle of a meeting, obviously. When I say resigned in the middle of the meeting, it was not an item that was on the agenda, which means we then had to call another meeting in order to accept his resignation as a board, okay? I was told at that time that the ordinance that we had in place would cover the township and that we would still be able to pay bills. That was contrary to what I read, and so I actually literally went and got a separate legal opinion from another attorney. And the one thing, and this could just be my opinion, most attorneys don't mind telling you things over the phone, but when they put it in writing, obviously that is a different animal. Mr. Spina is aware of it because I told him I would find the email and bring a copy. So I've given him a copy, I've given a copy to the clerk, and I've given Trustee Raga a copy. I have some extra copies here if anybody wants one, but I felt like having one attorney explain it to us because I did not want to walk into another meeting feeling like I was being forced to do something that violated the law. Now, from Mr. Spina's position, he is citing a law from 1881, okay, as the reason for being able to pay our bills. Based on this attorney, his name is Robert Hanlon and Associates, and he is out of Woodstock. He basically stated that we adopted a new constitution in 1970, which means we obviously have to follow the laws of that constitution. He has also cited several other court cases since then that basically state that we cannot make any payments once we accept the resignation of the supervisor. Meaning nobody can sign a check, nobody can use his signature stamp. Again, I felt like this was probably going to be an issue back in January, and the hope was that we could hopefully move forward and try to find a new supervisor to fill the position. He has cited several statutes, which I won't go into in detail, and what he basically said is that if anyone commits this act, they would be convicted, they could possibly be convicted of forgery. He cited that in here. He made me read it, and then he made me summarize it to make sure I understood it, but that's pretty much the gist of it. He cites several appellate court cases that have happened since 1881 that basically says that nobody can sign a check in this township if it is not the supervisor of the township. Our law does not allow for an interim supervisor unless our supervisor was physically incapacitated. Now again, I'm trying to tell you this from my memory, so if I'm wrong on something, I'm not an attorney, I'm a CPA. So that is what he said, and what I thought was very telling is that he said here at the end, he said, to be clear, anybody that facilitates the commission of a forgery, it's just stupidity. Now this is one attorney's opinion to another attorney, okay? And he said, and he made me read this last sentence several times, he said, finally, as an attorney, if another attorney was remotely involved or advised the commission of a forgery, I would be duty bound to report that conduct, okay? So it's not me with the issue with Mr. Spina. I went to another attorney, and that is the opinion that he literally put in writing. Most attorneys are not going to give you things in writing because obviously, you know, they want to say, oh, well, you misunderstood. Did everybody understand what I just read there? Okay, so that again is why within 48 hours of knowing that Supervisor Mayor had resigned, Trustee Raga and I have made several attempts to call a meeting. And since I don't want to go off on a tangent, I will read a quick statement which may answer most of these questions. If they don't, I'm going to still try to answer your questions, and if you guys have follow-up questions or need me to clarify, I will do that, okay? The next payday for the staff is February 15th of 2019. It is my understanding that the staff is paid current and not in arrears, meaning on the 15th, they're paid through the 15th. When I asked about the payroll schedule a year ago, a staff person gave me incorrect information as to why our payroll is paid current. That is neither here nor there because now we are at a point where we have to address this matter before the next payroll date. It has also been brought to my attention that the staff is being told that all of this is Trustee Benford's fault. That is 100% a lie, and I want to set the record straight right now. I am also asking the staff person that is going around and making those false statements to please cease immediately. Our top priority must be to fill the supervisor's vacancy as quickly as possible with someone that is able to help move the township forward by following the law. As you can see, Trustee Raga and I are here, because I planned, again, for only Trustee Raga and I to be here, and wanted to proceed with the public meeting to discuss the best way to handle the vacancy, which is why we're here, at least taking your comments, even though we're not in an official meeting. I originally chose this date because back in August or September, the board agreed to a budget workshop schedule. Tonight was supposed to be a regularly scheduled budget workshop meeting. So if we were already planning on being here back in August, it should not have been any issue with people being here tonight because that was a decision we made months ago. Number one, when Supervisor Mayor announced his resignation and the effective date, I was aware at that time that we would have an issue with payment of township expenses. Supervisor Mayor knew he was going to resign at our January 15th meeting. He could have placed his resignation on the agenda at that meeting. He could have also given an effective date that would not put the staff payroll in jeopardy. He did not, so the board at this point has to proceed based on the actions taken. Within 48 hours of our January 15th meeting, Trustee Raga and I made several attempts to schedule a meeting for that following week. This would allow the board to meet to discuss the matter of replacing the supervisor. We did not receive a response from the other trustees, so we eventually moved forward with scheduling a meeting for Monday, January 28th. Our meeting notice was not posted, which pretty much was the same agenda. Therefore, we were not able to meet. The meeting tonight is the same agenda that we had proposed for the meeting last week. I had also spoken with our legal counsel and sent him a draft of the meeting agenda to assure we were working within the law, and he actually even agreed that it was best for the board to meet to discuss how to fill the supervisor position. So Mr. Spina and I did agree on that. The meeting that was called last week did not allow for the replacement of a supervisor without Trustee Burgess committing a Class 4 felony. And it did not say possibly. The law said he is committing a Class 4 felony if he were to be appointed to that position without first resigning. I cut and pasted the law on a piece of paper. I read the law exactly as it was. When I started reading the law, I recall Mr. Spina saying he had no idea of what law I was reading from. I was reading from what is called the Public Officers Prohibited Act, and I'm concerned that he did not know that he couldn't tell me what I'm prohibited from doing. Now, I digress, but I had to share that. And then as I continued to read and said that you would be guilty of a Class 4 felony, he said he disagreed. Well, he just said he didn't know which law I was reading from, so how can you disagree if you have no idea of what I'm reading from? I handed him the piece of paper at his request. He read exactly what I said, and then he still said that he disagreed. Did he disagree that I could read, or did he disagree with what I cut and paste on that piece of paper? 2 days later, there was a FOIA request from Christine Mayer for what I read. Well, you all saw me give that to him. So he then had to provide that back to me so that I could give that to her and not violate any FOIA. Now back to what I was saying. The meeting that was called last week did not allow for the replacement of a supervisor without Trustee Burgess committing a Class 4 felony. Trustee Burgess and Oliver called the meeting for last week, and they set the agenda because 2 board members can call a meeting. Now, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I'm trying to clarify things because everybody's been asking, well, who called the meeting? How did that happen? This is exactly what happened, and if I'm saying anything wrong, I'm sure Trustee Raga would interject. You would have to speak to them regarding any other questions regarding the meeting that was called last week. It was brought to my attention that a trustee and a member of the staff met several times privately leading up to our meeting last week. My assumption is that that meeting was so that they could decide who would be the supervisor without having any discussion with Trustee Raga and I. I find this surprising because anytime I've reached out to the staff recently, I would always receive some email from the former supervisor or Trustee Oliver asking that all communication with the staff go through the supervisor at the time and the entire board would be copied. I did not receive any such email regarding the trustee that was meeting with that staff person prior to the meeting last Tuesday. Our next scheduled board meeting is February 19th at 7 p.m. I will ask our legal counsel how we should proceed with an agenda for our regular monthly board meeting in the absence of a supervisor. It is not my nor Trustee Raga's desire to wait until then to discuss these matters. The staff needs to be paid and the residents need to be served. We would prefer the board meet sooner to discuss the supervisor replacement, but we don't want to continue to call meetings, even though I know somebody stated that every single night and only 2 trustees show up, because I don't feel that that's a fair representation of your time. Now, hopefully the statement that I just read answered most of your questions. I'm going to look through these comments real quick to see if I can answer anything else. Communication with employees. When Supervisor Mayer announced his resignation at the January 15th meeting, I sent a message to each one of the board members individually, and I said the staff needs to be communicated to. Who do you think should be that person? They decided that the HR person should be that person, but nobody stepped up and said who's going to advise the HR person, because then she's trying to take direction from 4 different people. So unfortunately, that's why the staff has not been communicated to. Will the employees get paid? Based on what I just read, unless somebody in this room is planning on committing a forgery, I wasn't committing a felony last week and I'm not committing a forgery this week. So until this board meets, we are at a stalemate. I don't think we're going to be able to move forward, although I'm willing to meet and discuss that. I don't know if we're going to schedule a meeting every night. I already stated that. Will the senior center still stay open? It's my understanding that all services will continue. I would hope that the staff would still continue to report to work. I'm not sure of what the law states about if you get paid, if you don't, or if you do, but I will try to get clarification on that. Why can't we work together to solve the situation? I just gave you example upon example of how many times we've tried to work together for a meeting. We've shared the agenda. We didn't, Trustee Raga and I did not know of that other agenda until the Friday before the meeting. That was the agenda that was presented to us, and as you know, we came in and we accepted that agenda. That agenda obviously was going to cause for a violation of the law, which we chose not to do. I know that some of you are not happy that I walked out of the room, but this board is the one that would have been responsible for allowing that to go on, and again, I was not going to commit a felony. So if you're upset, I'm sorry, but again, I did not want to commit a crime. I do not feel that we should rush to get it done, and you did hear the attorney last week strongly advise Trustee Oliver to table that motion. Trustee Raga and I called to table the motion, and when our motion was defeated, we left because we did not, again, want anything else to occur. If you're not going to listen to the board and you're not going to listen to the attorney, then we really had no more control of the meeting at that point as a board. I get that you all are disappointed with us, and that's why, even though we received an email earlier today saying that the meeting was going to be canceled, I chose to still meet because I wanted to make sure we had a chance to hear your concerns. Now, Trustee Oliver said she had an appointment. I texted Trustee Burgess at about 2 o'clock and I asked him if he was coming to the meeting. He did not respond. At 4:15, he sent an email saying that he was not coming. And then I believe at 5:30, 5:40, we received an email from the clerk saying she was canceling the meeting. I told her that she does not have the authority to cancel the meeting because the two of us called the meeting, which again is why we're here tonight. How are we going to advertise the position? I don't know. That's what we wanted to meet as a board tonight to discuss, to see if it was possible to post something right away, to possibly find a replacement right away, so that we can move forward making sure the staff is paid by February 15th. Now again, had we had a meeting close to a month ago without all the other shenanigans, we probably would be at a point where we would be appointing a supervisor. But right now, we can only play the hand that we're dealt. Our next annual meeting, you're correct, is in April. If we don't have a supervisor, are we planning on doing something at that meeting? I'm not sure. I'll try to consult with legal counsel and legal counsel to try to find out the best way to handle that. Do I want to wait that long? Absolutely not. Most staff, almost everybody lives from paycheck to paycheck. I had an issue, as I'm sure some of you guys did, with the government shutdown running for so long. I have made an effort to try to get together for a meeting. So, and I don't normally act on my own. I would normally at least consult Trustee Raga and say, are you fine with this? The Facebook drama, I was actually asked to go into the Facebook drama group and try to clarify some things because there were a lot of things that were being said in that group that were not true. Do the employees still have to show up to work? I think I already answered that. We're getting at the end of our fiscal year. You're absolutely right. The end of our fiscal year is March 31st. We had about 7 budget workshops on the schedule. We have not had one. So we have not even moved forward yet with having our next budget workshop. I did email the Attorney General to find out if it was okay for one board member to unilaterally continue to cancel. I was told that their law does not cover that. So at this point, one person canceled 5 workshops that were scheduled, so we still have not started to work on our budget. HB 3133, I think a gentleman back there already discussed that, but if you have any other questions, let me know. Somebody said infighting between 2 political parties. This is not a meeting, but we were all of the same political party. So it was not 2 political parties because the town, and I don't know if it's because township government is the oldest form of government, but we all ran on the same party ticket when we ran for office. A young lady said something in the back about having 300 text messages about our executive session. I'm appalled that any member of this board would be texting any individual about our executive sessions. That's the whole purpose of them. We voted to seal those records, at this point, that tape, and so no member of the public should have known what was going on in our executive session. I'm sure if I asked that person to provide her phone bills to show that she was receiving text messages at that time, I'm pretty sure that it would support that. Have we gotten an opinion from the Attorney General regarding how to pay employees? The Attorney General, I don't believe would get involved in that matter. I'm not sure. So I would have to ask, but I do have an opinion from the other gentleman who basically says we cannot commit forgery. It's my understanding that there is a clause in the law that would call, the board would have to direct the attorney to file a court order to demand the former supervisor sign checks. If we don't have a quorum, the board can never act to address the attorney to have him do anything to make sure the employees get paid. If nothing else, at the end of the day, that is my biggest concern, is making sure they get paid. I don't appreciate anybody on this staff furthering their own agenda or covering up their own lies by lying on me, and I'm going to ask them to stop doing it. When do we plan to have the next meeting? I don't know. Trustee Raga's here. If he wants to decide on a meeting date, we can decide that now. We can come up with an agenda and we can post it. I don't want to meet here every night, and I don't think you guys want to come here every night just to go home or to come here and listen to me talk. So I hope I answered everybody's questions. If I did not answer them to the degree that you want, you can ask again now, or when everybody's finished, you can come up and ask me again later. But I tried to write it down, hopefully to speed this process along. Ladies first, let me call Judy and then you, Gary. Yes, Judy.
I have a question about general assistance. The checks that are written out of that are between the supervisor and the general assistance administrator. Does that mean the general assistance department is officially closed for emergencies, EA? So nobody, somebody comes in here with their water shut off, they will not get a check. Well, the check goes to the utility anyway, but there would be no approval of a check to be written to turn that water back on.
Okay, I'm going to write questions again.
Because so it is between the supervisor and the GA person, but you know, if you have no signature on the check, then I would say your GA department is kind of closed except for Salvation Army money.
Okay, so let me write down a round of questions and I'll kind of do the same thing. I think that works a little bit quicker. Yes, Gary?
Talking about a special township meeting, we know that the board can call a special township meeting at any time. The statute that covers the 60-day waiting period, if you haven't filled anybody, the position says after 60 days you must call a township meeting, okay? However, it doesn't say you can't call it before 60 days. And also, if you can't get a quorum of the board to do it, all you need is 15 voters in the township who will sign a petition asking for a special town meeting and they can put on the town meeting exactly what the agenda they want to do. So that's one you can check with the township attorney and ask them if you can call a special town meeting beforehand without having to wait to 60 days or anything, and also put it on the agenda then.
Anybody else have questions?
One other thing, the fact about taking those applications and everything, I think it's point 6, discuss and act upon advertising for applicants for appointments to the position of township supervisor. Don't you guys agree on that some way? It seems like you can get together and agree on that and figure out something for accepting those advertising and accepting the applications and getting that straightened out.
Then they got to fill an empty trustee position.
I'm Kimberly. I'm the General Assistance Director here at DuPage Township. And Judy, I did just hear your statement that you made. I do have Salvation Army funds, and as of today, I just educated myself on how to do the Night Court Share program because of this situation, because I feel like people should not have to come in here and not get the assistance. I saw the way that this was going, so I made that initiative to make sure I educate myself with the Night Court Share program, along with the water program and other utilities. So people will still be able to get assistance.
Right. I did say that the Salvation Army money does not need the supervisor's signature, that you are the official volunteer for it. So you do have access to that money. But however, the emergency assistance money that has been budgeted is evidently now closed to you until we get a supervisor. That's what I wanted clarified.
Yes.
I have a question, it's more of a question slash statement, is that Kimberly, I'm sure, is very aware of other resources that she can link people to in the community that do offer assistance. I know that the church that I belong to gives Good Samaritan funds, but in order to get the funds, they actually redirect people to the township to get vetted for the funds, and then once they get vetted, that's the word, but screened, whatever, then then Kimberly will give them a call and say XYZ person has come to the township and they've been screened and they're okay to receive the funds that you have for them. So there are lots of agencies in the area that I'm sure Kimberly does redirect people to if they don't have the funding, they don't have the funding, but there are other resources.
Township Health.
Yes, sir.
Since there's so many folks here, one thing everybody ought to take into consideration is your township. Provide suggested names to people that you think would be a good supervisor, or step up and volunteer to be a supervisor, because they're still going to have to find somebody to do it. And what more collective group than what we have right here and their friends and family elsewhere to put forth those names that may help expedite that whole process of searching for somebody.
Okay, anyone else? Yes.
I just like to say I appreciate you guys both being here and answering all of our questions. And my main comments at the beginning was hopefully that there was a whole board to hear the whole spiel. But, you know, if the other two show up at another meeting, or if there's a way I can get their email, I plan on letting them know the same information. Videos are wonderful, thank you. But I do want to, I appreciate all the answers that you've been giving us tonight, and I hope that they do find the right person to do this, but I hope it is a speedy process, because most of us live paycheck to paycheck.
Yes, sir.
Two comments. To everyone saying, can the trustees agree on a new supervisor? I think the trustees have made it clear they were already willing to choose an existing supervisor, and so that may be where our focus needs to be, on getting people to agree on a new supervisor. Also, if we had followed the agenda last, I don't have to film, just work with me. If we had followed the agenda last week, or to your point of Trustee Burgess needed to resign first, there seemed to be confusion about Supervisor Mayer last week, whether he was still able to vote or not. So if Trustee Burgess resigns, is he still a voting member at that same meeting or not? No. No. I'm just saying. Mr. Sweeney even seemed to be unclear on that detail. And if anybody, maybe this is a Denny's conversation, but what is this township meeting and how is that different than appointing someone? Is that a general vote? How does that work? And please look into having that sooner. Because I think I think if we had that meeting, if we were able to have that meeting earlier and allow the people to vote or speak up wherever it works, I think that addresses about 80 to 90% of the issues that were brought up tonight.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
One last comment, I promise.
We're here.
No matter what side of the issues everybody's been on over these last several months, I want everybody to think long and hard about what's happening right here tonight. What you're seeing tonight is a constitutional republic in action. You're seeing community involvement, interaction, questions, answers, dialogue. You're able to do it in a civil manner. I would encourage whoever the next supervisor is and this board, take a hard look at what you did with public comment policy rules. Because any time we've ever seen rules implemented that restrict the people's right to speak, we end up, it usually is being done for a reason and it's not positive. This is positive. Even if you don't agree with anything I'm saying, you may say something I don't agree with, but that's how our system of government is supposed to work. It's respectful, it's civil, and it leads to solutions. And I beg of you folks to address that with the new board and new supervisor, or the new supervisor when the board gets together, because this is how it should work. It solves problems.
Should have come to the trash meeting we had on when 145 people showed up to talk about toters.
That's, yeah, we don't handle
The best way to get
toters.
them here is to talk, say you're gonna talk about trash.
There's enough trash talking around here, I hate to say it.
So the point about public comment, could you look up clarification on whether this trustee board ever did adopt Robert Rules of Order? You brought that up last week, and again, there seemed to be confusion on how to proceed from the lawyer, among other people.
But I think if you use it one time, you have to continue.
Oh, just get clarification on that for the future so we don't have to wonder.
Anyone else? Yes.
I just need to clarify, I know you are all on the same slate and you all ran together and you all used to work together very well. Nobody ever used to come to a township meeting, ever. Your township meetings lasted like 8 minutes. I'm not kidding. Pledge of Allegiance, pass everything, and they're out of here. And I don't know what happened to cause the division in the board, but I would like to see if there's some way to move past that to at least get yourself a new supervisor. Get us a new supervisor.
That's how things happen though.
Okay.
You let them go, and you let them go, and you let them go.
Anyone else? Before I start with round 2 of answers? Yes.
I would just like to know, why can't you guys work together? What is the problem? You have 4 trustees, you guys should all be able to work together.
Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, work togetger.
Other than that, because that's not working.
How might that happen?
Donuts. So do you have anything else?
Grow up, come on, babe.
Donuts and coffee. Anything else? I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead, sir.
First, I mean, it's been said a couple of times, really thank you guys for being here. This is the most answers and the most feedback we received here and forever, really, thank you. Now, to answer her question, they can't work together because other trustees refuse to work together.
That's
I mean,
not true.
well, they're not here. I mean,
Well,
I'm not
they
gonna
walked out
argue
before
with you.
too.
Okay, hold on
Hold
one
on.
second. I'll let you
Hold on,
speak,
I
but let
understand,
him
yeah.
finish. Go ahead.
I'm not gonna have an argument, but right now you're saying, why won't you work together? They called for a meeting, they handed the agenda, they didn't even show up. At least they showed up and stated why they were walking out. They were trying to force them to break the law. I mean, that's clear. It's not a matter of opinion, it's a fact. That's what happened at the last meeting. They were trying to shove Burgess down everybody's throat illegally. And we keep going back to this. They did the right thing. And the fact that people are still saying, well, I'm upset that they walked out, you know, I'm proud that they walked out. I mean, these guys have been taking a beating for the past year for standing for what they believe in. They've been taking a beating. They've even had crazy people show up here and accuse them of stuff. I mean, and you're upset that they walked out because they wouldn't accept Burgess. Not that they wouldn't accept Burgess, they wouldn't accept how they would want to elect Burgess. I mean, we got to come to terms with that. They were trying to force them to break the law, to push whatever agenda. It's not a matter of opinion. We got to just say, okay, that's what happened. That's all I have to say. Sorry.
No need to apologize. Yes.
He's making it sound like you guys never showed up for a meeting, or that you were at every meeting. There was a few meetings that you didn't show up for. So it's all 4 of the trustees. It's not just 2 and 2. It's everybody that needs to work together.
Anybody else? Okay, round 2 of answers. Okay, first and foremost, the letter that I have here again from the attorney, it answers your question on when the supervisor's resignation is effective. Because I asked him to give me an opinion on several things that were confusing last week. So if you want to grab a copy of this, again, it's 4 pages, so I don't want to read through it again. That's going to answer your question. The general assistance question, it's my understanding, again, the supervisor is, even if we had a supervisor, is 100% in charge of general assistance. He's bonded, he's the only person that can sign checks. If we do not have a supervisor, we cannot issue funds from general assistance or emergency assistance. Again, I brought extra copies. The attorney that gave the opinion can tell more. Special township meeting, can we call it before 60 days? I don't know if we can, I'll look at the law, I'll see. That I'm not sure of, I don't believe we can, but again, I don't know the entire township law in my head. But from what I've read, usually when I have an issue, I'll read the law and see what it says. That I'm not sure of, but I have your phone number, sir, so I will find out and we'll have another hour-long conversation. 15 voters for a special meeting. I will again check into that and figure out what those rules are. Discuss and act and agree upon advertising. Can we at least do that? That's what the purpose of this meeting tonight was for. I don't feel any of the board should just run rogue and start trying to move forward with replacing a supervisor without us all at least communicating and agreeing on the best way that that's going to be done. Whether we agree or disagree, we have to at least get past that in order to replace this position. Kim spoke about the night court share, utilities, and Salvation Army. She'll have to give you any other information she has on that. Again, I do not have a copy of the General Assistance Manual that TOI produces, because I've never been in charge of General Assistance. I believe she now, that's not Kim, back there. I believe she now has an updated copy, and she can answer any other questions that you have there. Can we provide good names on who should be a supervisor amongst each other? I personally do not feel comfortable with discussing names outside of this meeting because I don't want anybody to come in this meeting saying Alicia tried to put forth whomever to be the supervisor. If we're going to talk about it, we need to talk about it in an open meeting. That is the problem that we've had, is we don't do things in an open meeting. We were getting called into the office to be told one thing at a time by one board member at a time. If you're going to be transparent, all of that should happen in this open meeting. Now, having said that, don't be so quick to try to email Trustee Raga or I. Why? Because our email addresses are wrong on the township website. They've been for a while, and they still have not been corrected. If you click on Contact Me, you're going to get S. Watts at DuPage Township. And if you click on me, you're going to get my name with a couple extra B's and B's and letters that are not in my email address. If you'd like my township email address, I will give it to you tonight. I'll say it here in case anybody else wants to know. It's my first initial, A, B as in boy, E, N, F as in David, O, R, did I say that wrong? I said it wrong. A, B as in boy, E, N, F as in Frank, O, R, D as in David at DuPageTownship.com. If you go on the website and click Contact Me under my name, you're going to get somebody else with extra letters in their name and it won't get to you. Can the trustees agree on a new supervisor? We can, when we can all get together and meet and have a quorum. Can Supervisor Mayor vote or not? I'm going to tell you my opinion, which agreed with the attorney. That answer would be no. You can't have it both ways. If his resignation was effective immediately, then that it was effective immediately. You know, when the public policy ordinance was adopted, technically, from my reading, that was not supposed to be effective immediately. Why? Because it came with penalties. If something comes with penalties, the board can't just adopt it and then just say, okay, we're going to move forward. The attorney that night said that it could be, and he read a code that was a municipal code that does not pertain to the township. Dillon Rules says if it's not in our law, we can't do it. So, this is Alicia's opinion, which agrees with this attorney, that public policy should not have been adopted or put into effect that night. So you can't have it both ways. You can't say that the supervisor is still a board member for the rest of the night when the public policy was adopted effective immediately. Does that clarify most of your questions?
What would happen then if you were to move forward and Trustee Raga were to resign at that moment? Would he then be allowed to vote moving forward?
My understanding is once you resign, and if it's an item on the agenda, so if Trustee Raga said tonight he's resigning, we still have to put it on the agenda and accept it as a board. Had that happened in that January 15th meeting when the supervisor knew he was resigning, we could have accepted his resignation then. We could have even talked about it and said, hey, we have some paydays here. Can we move this, to a different date to accommodate everyone? We didn't have that luxury because it wasn't on the agenda in January. So hopefully that answers your question.
Alicia, can I speak?
Hold on, let me finish. Hold your thought, because I want to make sure I get through everybody's comments. How can someone be appointed? Per the law, the board is responsible for filling the vacancy. So until the board meets, nobody can be appointed, okay? Public policy comment rules. I'm glad you heard me tonight when Mr. Spina was standing right here and the clerk was still here. I said to him, I'm going on record in front of other people, that I do not agree with that public policy ordinance because it does violate the Open Meetings Act. I asked him that at that meeting that night. He said it did not. Then he came back and said, well, the Attorney General had ruled on it after I gave you that advice. It did not. It didn't, I know from other meetings and being on other boards that public policy thing, that public policy comments, it does violate it because it directs the board, it directs you as individuals to only direct your comments to the supervisor. That is not what the Open Meeting Act says. Robert's Rules of Order. This township has been around for a very long time. So when Mr. Spina asked at the last meeting if we've ever adopted Robert's Rules of Order, I don't know what they adopted before 2011, okay? That is when I came on this board. It's my understanding that none of our minutes are digitized to the point that I'd be able to search on it without somebody sending me every single set of minutes. I'm not going to go back to the 1900s to find out if we've ever adopted it. I don't believe that there's, and I could be wrong, that there's anything that says we have to adopt it every couple of years. I again talked to him tonight about that and said, instead of having the clerk go back and look through years of meetings, can we just put it on the agenda and adopt it and be done with it? So, no one came to the township meeting. You're right. Prior to us asking questions, we did not have anybody at the township meeting.
I came.
No, okay, I'm sorry. We did have 1 or 2 people at the township meeting. In March, I asked about an unauthorized check that you later confirmed was an unauthorized check via an email. A check was issued that this board had not approved, and that is what started all of the back and forth. Am I correct? And did you not see in an email where that particular employee admitted that they had approved that check and issued a check without this board's approval? The town funds is what this board is responsible for. The supervisor is responsible for general assistance. I'm not going to sit on this board and let staff decide what checks are going to be issued if that is a discussion we're supposed to have at a board meeting. In trying to cover up for what happened, I think they inadvertently admitted to the guilt of issuing that check without the board's approval. Trustee Raga then brought that up, and as you stated, ever since we've asked questions, that has been the back and forth that has occurred. And just to clarify things, and I have shown him as well, there was cash that was meant for DuPage Township that went into bank accounts that are not township controlled and that this board had no knowledge of and did not approve. Am I correct? Okay. And the attorney that we had prior to that knew that. And I was actually going to discuss that in our executive session back in April when our attorney then was fired in the middle of the meeting. The former supervisor had already met with that law firm and they knew exactly what I was going to bring up in our executive session. So to clarify, when somebody said that no cash was stolen or they didn't steal it, money that was meant for the township account did not go into the township account and the board had no knowledge of it. Now you can call it what you want, but we will let the Attorney General and any other law enforcement people that want to figure out what happened, they can do that at that time. Why can't we work together? We've been trying to schedule a meeting to work together. So unless somebody else has another idea, 3 trustees can never be on any communication together. I'll text him, I'll text one of them. Until all 3 of us can agree to a meeting date and time, it's going to be difficult for all of us to meet. So if somebody else has a better idea, I'm open to suggestions. I walked out of the meeting. The attorney, Mr. Hanlon, said, if anything like that happens again, you need to walk out of a meeting. So I, on the advice of legal counsel, I left that meeting and I will do it again if anybody is trying to force me into breaking the law. One person said that I have not been at every meeting. No, there was a period of time where I was going through surgeries that I was not at meetings. But last year, when there was a meeting in May that was missed, I was on a vacation that had been planned for over a year. So I could not get off a ship and come to that meeting. That was, I believe, the meeting that I know I wasn't at. And I believe 2 other trustees were not at. I know I was not here because I was physically not in the state of Illinois. Now I think I've answered the second round of questions. Ms. Breadaway, you had another comment or question, so now we'll go for round 3. Well, again, I'll do this all night until I can give everybody's answers.
I just wanted to clarify that Supervisor Meyer offered his resignation at the January 15th meeting, and it was not on the agenda. And it was effective the 22nd. So at the next meeting, the special meeting of the Township Board, before anything happened, you accepted his resignation. So his resignation has been accepted, and basically the seat's declared vacant.
Anybody else?
One other question. It seems to me that it's gonna, if, let's say all 4 of you show up, okay? And how are you gonna decide who's gonna be the new supervisor? If the vote's like 2 and 2, how are you gonna resolve something? I don't know. I would, that's kind of a quandary. Hold on.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm.
How are you gonna resolve? It seems like the only way it's gonna be clarified is you get 2 or 3 of you show up, and then you got a quorum, and then you can make a decision.
Well, it would be, this is just me talking. The 4 of us have to figure out how to come together. So if it were me, I would personally want every board member to agree on who that person would be. I know that it's supposed to be majority rules, but then you're going to have maybe 3 people wanting a person and 1 person not wanting the person. I would think that we all would need to agree. Now, the law says only 3 of us need to agree. But I think in the interest of making sure everybody feels like they were not slighted in the decision of choosing the supervisor, that all 4 of us should be able to agree. Now, all 4 of us could possibly agree on somebody that's not a member of this board right now. But until we get together and meet, we're not going to know that.
But what if they don't agree? What if all 4 of you don't agree?
Only 3 of us need to agree.
Yeah.
Per the law.
Yeah, but it might not happen.
So if it's 2 and 2, the clerk's gonna break the tie.
What?
If it's 2 and 2, the clerk's gonna break the tie.
The clerk's gonna?
Yes.
That's the only time the clerk.
If it's 2 and 2, the clerk's gonna break the tie.
Who's the clerk?
The young lady who just left. And that's the only time that she is allowed to vote is when she's breaking a tie to fill a vacancy.
Seems like that might resolve the situation.
Well, we gotta get some names first.
I think we got as a candidate.
Yeah, we gotta get some names first. Anybody else?
But what's wrong with picking a trustee? It's already here.
In order to pick, that's a good question. In order to pick a trustee that is already here, that trustee would have to resign. That trustee would then have to, no longer has a vote and has to assume that all 3 trustees are going to vote for that individual. I personally am not going to consider anyone that is not in a position to be considered at the time we are ready to pick a supervisor. So I had offered to Trustee Burgess, I think the first agenda was for him to resign. If somebody wants to be considered for a supervisory role, you have to be here and ready to be a supervisor. I can't pick somebody that's not a member of the township. I don't even want to consider you unless you're at a point that you're able to be considered for that position. I'm not going to make a promise that I'm going to vote for anybody. I'm going to let this board discuss it and the board decide.
But I can see why he wouldn't want to resign or you wouldn't want to resign because they could put the screws to you. And then you could lose your seat on the board.
Exactly. Let's play it out to where it went as planned, as their plan was. So how would he be able to accept a position and vote on it? That would be a conflict of interest because he's a trustee and then be voting to accept his appointment. Otherwise, if we would vote and said no, you can't hold 2 titles at the same time. That's why we need to resign from one to accept the other one, because now it's a conflict of interest, because how could you vote for yourself?
Well, I could see why a trustee, anybody wouldn't do that. I can see.
Well,
here you go.
Well, and here's the other scenario. Had he wanted to be the supervisor, sure, that could have been fine, had he included Trustee Benford and myself. We weren't included in that decision.
Never called,
never discussed upon. So how would you feel now that everybody's voicing their opinion, being upset that we're making decisions without consulting with the residents? Well, we feel the same way, that we feel that we're up here for the best interest of the residents. And we're not included in that meeting or that discussion. to pick Trustee Burgess, and then maybe we wouldn't have had that walkout because we could have said, hey, well, by the way, you can't hold that position and accept another one. You can't do it. And then have possibly come to a vote and then vote for yourself. You can't do that.
Don't forget to appoint your replacement.
That's a ridiculous statement saying that you can't vote for yourself. Because if you don't have enough confidence to vote for yourself, why should anyone else vote for you?
If you resign. That's what the law says.
No, that's not the law. That is not the law.
State law says it's a felony.
Yeah, the state law says he has to first resign.
No, it's not. Not if you're in, if you resign before you accept the office, it is perfectly legal. Because
correct.
Wait. If you're a state rep, okay, say you're a state rep, okay, and the senator, retires, okay, and you get the committeemen to vote, okay, and they vote for the state rep. The state rep does not, resign before he's voted in as a state senator. As soon as he's voted in as state senator, he then resigns because he can't hold two offices at once.
And that's not what the township law says.
The township does not cover it. It's elected officials law that they're talking.
And the Prohibited Officers Act specifically says township government. And it says that you have to first resign before you can be appointed to another position. And if you read further down in that law, it actually even allows you to hold another office, another elected office, as long as it's not in a position that has a contractual arrangement with the township. So in your example, a person can be a mayor of another town and on the township board, or a state rep or a senator on the township board. If our township law says that you don't have a contractual relationship with that other entity, then it's not an issue. But in the township government, and it specifically says township government, you have to first resign before you can even be appointed to another position.
What did the attorney say?
Which attorney?
The attorney that was here.
The attorney that was here had no clue of what law I was reading.
Okay, did he say it was okay? He apparently didn't know.
He said he didn't know last week.
Right, and he has not come back and said anything else to me since.
It seems that you will accept the attorney's opinion when you agree with it, but if you don't agree with it, then all of a sudden you don't accept it.
It was the law, and I'm telling you that another attorney stated that we were correct in walking out because it was in violation of the township law. The township law. And there's a section in there that points to the Public Officers Prohibited Act. So it wasn't that I didn't agree with him. I know how to read, and I read that law that said you have to first resign. And he has not to this day come back and said anything different from that. And it's been a week, and I had a conversation with him today. So if he disagreed with what he read that I read last week, I would assume he would have said that at this point. So at this point, he is not saying he's disagreed with me. Gentleman in the back.
Is your township attorney putting anything in writing on this opinion?
Nope. Not like Mr. Hanlon has, no.
Thank you.
And I pointed that out earlier. That most of the time attorneys will put something in writing because of course I can give this to anybody and you could essentially take this into a court of law and say that the attorney gave you bad advice based on what he wrote. So no, he has not.
Is he a township attorney? Other than we hired him?
He's a divorce attorney.
So
we need a real I'm trying to get to find out, does he even know the law?
I'm going to tell you.
You can go online and look his name up and you can see exactly what he has a degree in, of what type of laws. If he has family law, corporate law, you can actually see. And I can tell you, I looked it up and he has no knowledge of any corporate law.
He's listed as being a township law.
Yes, he does. In his bio on his website, he is listed as a township law.
I think she may be referring
on
to
the bar, on the
attorneys.
state bar of Illinois, he is not listed as a corporate lawyer.
His
a
website
corporate
for
lawyer?
his practice.
To answer your question, I can't answer your question because the law states that the supervisor shall decide on who the attorney would be and they have to bring it to the board. Now, usually people will ask for references. Did anybody check his references? If he said he's practiced for 20 different townships, did anybody call those townships and say, are you happy with who this attorney is? I have no idea. I can just tell you that from one of the conversations I had, He did say to me that he primarily practices divorce law. Does that mean he doesn't practice any other law? I don't know. I'm just telling you from a phone conversation that we had.
I personally think you should have an attorney check into that and see if it's right, because it doesn't make any sense.
See if what's right.
If what
That he has to resign before.
He can even.
I just told you that. I did check into it, and that's what this attorney has put in writing.
And who is he?
His name is Robert Hanlon, and he is out of Woodstock, and he is an attorney that does practice primarily township law and federal law.
How many you got?
So I got about 10 copies here. So I did, because I didn't want it to be a lot of back and forth, which was why I went and asked him to
Is the
give
township
an
gonna
opinion.
have to pay for that?
And you know, because I asked him to do it, which means if anybody would be paying for it, it would be Alicia Benford. And then, hold on one second, just to answer your question, you can feel free to give him a call. You know, tell him that we spoke tonight and ask whatever questions you have on that. Again, I'm not an attorney, so I'm trying to answer what I can to the best of my
It
knowledge.
just doesn't make any sense, because obviously, if you're gonna get elected supervisor, you will resign after you're elected, but why didn't you do it before?
Because that's what the township law states. Hold on one second, one at a time. Gentleman in the back, 1 second. Yes.
I have a question though. So since none of the assessors or anybody might not get a check February 15th, is the attorney still gonna get paid?
I don't believe anybody at this point is going to get paid, because nobody is going to forge a signature on a check, which was not the original instructions that I was given. I was told that because we passed an ordinance that allowed for certain bills to be paid, that they would still be paid while we're pending a new supervisor appointment, which again, I didn't feel comfortable with, which is why this attorney said that that would be forgery if anybody were to do that. So as far as I am aware, nobody should get paid, nobody should be using the former supervisor's signature stamp without either a court order or until a new supervisor has been named. Gentleman in the back.
Yeah, as a point of clarification, who would do this without resigning? If you do some Google searches on this topic, you'll find this is not uncommon where a trustee will resign to take the appointment to be a supervisor. The difference we have here is there's conflicts between, you have a split board. So that has created a conflict, but more importantly, the Officers Prohibited Activities Act it's a 50 ILCS statute, it's on local government. The Township Code says that statute applies, and in that statute it says any appointment that is made is void if they had not resigned first.
Right. So it would be a wasted effort to even
Right.
appoint him, because it would be invalid
You can't
because he
appoint,
hasn't
it's
first
void. It
resigned.
says it's void.
And that is literally written in the actual law. And I don't mind getting a copy of it for you, you know, if you want to read it for yourself. But what I'm explaining to you is, I get that you're frustrated, but I'm explaining to you just specifically what the law says. I haven't added anything to it, haven't taken anything away from it. He has to first resign before anybody would even consider, well, before I would even consider an appointment, because you're not even in a position to be a supervisor if you're still a trustee on this board. And you can't take a resignation back. So what do you do if you put him there and then he says, well, I'm not going to resign. Now I've helped him commit a class 4 felony. I'm not helping anybody commit a misdemeanor, so I'm definitely not going to help you commit a felony. Gentleman in the back.
Would you make a note that when you do eventually get a new supervisor, that there are citizens who would like to review your current township lawyer relationship? Yes.
Okay.
Good idea.
No, I should send you a copy of it.
Also, in regards to what the gentleman just said, please clarify, who sets the compensation of your legal counsel?
The law states that the board is responsible for setting the compensation.
Did this board ever set the compensation of your legal counsel?
No.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Spina told us what his hourly rate would be.
Cart before the horse.
How come it's online then that he's getting $7,200 a week?
Is that what is in the payables?
It was,
That he's been paid?
Yes.
That could be the case, because he set his compensation at $250 an hour. So whatever bills he submits, if he submits it to this board for payment, and he is technically the attorney right now, and I'm going to digress for a second. For a period of time, we had 2 different attorneys here because the board had not approved him. When he was finally approved, he actually gave us 2 sets of bills. He gave us a set of bills before the board approved him and a set of bills after the board approved him, because he already knew, apparently, he was on that agenda, so he had already known that at least 3 of the board members would vote for him. Trustee Raga and I voted no to paying any bills before he was elected, before the board approved it, because it's illegal to have paid him for any of those bills prior to this board approving him. I'm gonna assume he knew that, or he wouldn't have given us 2 separate set of bills.
He's gonna bill you tonight for $250
Well,
for that.
he said he was coming tonight. I told him if he was sure we weren't gonna have a meeting, he didn't need to come. I don't believe there's anything in the law that says he has to be at every meeting. But it was up to him if he chose to be here. So now, is he gonna submit a bill? Probably. Yes.
This letter does not reference the appointment process and the Public Officers Prohibited Activities Act.
See, that's what I...
This letter, it looks to be exclusively
To his resignation?
towards the resignation and the signing of checks. So, if you look up the Public Officers Prohibited Activities Act, section what?
2C, I believe, or
2A. 2A.
Section 2A. It's a short paragraph and it's clear in that statute. I'll give you the statute.
And I'm not gonna pay for another legal opinion, so anybody that wants to pay for one, feel free.
What section is it again?
2A. And if you want, Gary, I can email it to you.
Also,
Okay.
I don't know if I have your email address, I can print it or whatever if you want.
What's it called?
Okay.
I can give you my
this
email.
statute.
Okay. Yes, ma'am, in the back.
50 ILCS 105.
That's a good question. From my reading of the law, the only qualifications for the supervisor is that he's of the same political party as the supervisor that was resigning. I don't believe there's any educational requirements for a supervisor, just like there actually isn't for the mayor, but they have to live within the township and they have to be of the same political party. I think that's it, but again, I'm trying to do this from memory, so I can. Well, once a supervisor is appointed, then we would have to go through our insurance company to bond the supervisor. They will normally do a credit check and other things, obviously see if he has a felony conviction or something, which technically shouldn't be a supervisor anyway, I don't think he legally can. But that is, those, to my knowledge, those are the 2 main requirements. And if there's more, I would have to read it again. But my understanding is of the same political party and that they live within the township boundaries. And 18 years of age. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
All right.
Yes, gentleman in the back?
Is there anything in the statutes or guidelines about members not attending, trustees not attending meetings or refusing to show up or anything like that?
Yes, if there are 5 absences unexcused, then that office would be then considered vacant.
Of a regular meeting.
Of our regular meeting.
5 consecutive meetings.
Is that per
So that's
calendar
5 months.
5 months of
Well,
meeting.
now it is. We used to have 2 a month, so.
Yeah, so now we only have 1 per month. And I would assume, calendar year, I would assume that would be per our fiscal year, which our fiscal year starts April 1st. Yeah. And again, I'm trying to tell you guys stuff from memory, so if I'm wrong, you know, I'll try to correct it if I can, but that's my knowledge from what I've read. Because all of the questions you guys are asking, honestly, I know that both of us have thought of. So I don't think there really is much that you guys have brought up tonight that the 2 of us have not already pondered at some point during this process. Are there any other questions?
Well, one thing you talked about, applications for supervisor. In other words, hoping there's gonna be more than 1 application, right?
That would be, yeah, I would assume that if we open it up, that more than 1 person would apply.
And then, you know, agree on that.
We can't agree to move forward until we have another board member here. So at this point, we still, yeah, but when we do, hopefully we can. Yes, sir.
Can we schedule a meeting for next week, or would you put an agenda together for next Wednesday? Let's change the day Maybe Mondays aren't good for them.
Okay, so according to Trustee Oliver, Mondays and Wednesdays are not good for her. So we could try to do next Tuesday.
Okay.
But let me,
I know you've
we ain't in an
got
open
Bill.
meeting, so nobody please try to FOIA my text messages, because I'm not in an open meeting right now. So let me check and see my availability for next Tuesday, which would be the 12th. I do have a client at 6 that I will be willing to move if we agree to a meeting. Does Tuesday work for you? Would you like the same agenda? Does anybody else have any agenda suggestions other than what we had on the agenda tonight? If not, Trustee Raga and I, we only have to give 48 hours notice, but we will tonight, tomorrow, email the clerk explaining that we're going to have a meeting next Tuesday. I did ask Trustee Oliver what days did it work. I know she said Mondays and Wednesdays, so I'm gonna hope that Tuesday works, and I can ask Trustee Burgess the same thing. And we can give it a try again.
Why can't you try to have one possibly this week?
Yeah, Thursday.
The sooner the better.
Okay, so we have to have 48 hours notice.
Friday.
And it's,
If you give it to them tomorrow morning, then you can have it on Friday.
we would then be having a meeting on Friday night, and I will tell you right now that I won't be here because I have to leave Friday to take my son out of town. So they can meet, but I'm telling everybody right now that I won't be here because I will physically be on a plane. I have to take him for auditions in California. So I know Friday does not work for me. We can't do Thursday because we have to give 48 hours notice. I come back late Sunday night. We can do Monday.
Today's Monday, you could do Thursday.
Yeah, you can do Thursday. I done lost all my days. Okay, sorry, let me look at my schedule for Thursday, because I don't leave until
I'll decide
Friday.
and give it to the clerk before 6 o'clock tomorrow.
I have another scheduled meeting that night, but I can forego that meeting to be here Thursday night if they're,
Thursday.
if we can get them to agree on Thursday night. Are you, I just don't want to keep calling you guys back here and we're meeting every day to.
I think
I'll
all the
come back
people who are
every
waiting
day.
on paychecks would be here every
Yeah.
day till
Yeah.
7.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
Get a petition.
So
have everybody that works here.
I will send a request tomorrow to call a meeting for 7 p.m. on Thursday. It's my understanding that we just can't have a meeting before 6 p.m.
Can you put on there that your
agenda.
township workers are concerned about paychecks
I
as part
can
of the
guarantee
agenda?
you have 2 young ladies streaming this live on 2 different groups.
And they're watching.
They are watching.
Oh, I've
yeah.
read some of the comments already.
Right,
I know
so I am going to do what I'm required by law to do,
One of them's
which
watching right
is the 2 of us will call for the meeting. I will text each one of them individually to let them know that we've called for a meeting on Thursday, and we will see if they're here Thursday evening.
And you'll put it up on the page.
I will, yes, we'll make sure that it gets posted, but I will do that tonight.
Well,
Anybody else have any other questions? I
I
don't
was
want to cut
gonna
anybody
say,
off.
let's hope that a lot of people here would contact Mary Pat Oliver and Burgess to be at that meeting.
Okay, why don't you?
So
Well,
we
on
get
our
that-
website,
I mean, you know,
there,
Speak to
phone
them right
numbers,
now.
phone numbers,
Encourage them to
okay,
come
you
to
want to
the-
follow?
Mary Pat Oliver's online right now.
So speak directly to
So
her.
our phone numbers are on our township website. I haven't checked their email, so I don't know if their email addresses are correct. But,
And ask, have her asked to be here.
So she can watch it online, but she can't come in.
so anybody else have any other questions, comments? There's no meeting, so there's nothing to adjourn. I'm just trying to make sure that I've addressed everybody's questions.
Make sure you ask them these questions that you asked us too when they do show up.
Oh, we will.
You trying to tell us what to do?
Don't tell anybody what to do. Steve.
Are they here in the offices during the day where people can actually call their numbers?
I believe the numbers that are online are our cell phone numbers. So none of the trustees are normally except our emails are wrong. That's why I don't want anybody mad saying they emailed me, because that township email is wrong. But our cell numbers are online. Yes.
Have you been able to get any help from the Attorney General?
The Attorney General normally, I did call them today to ask them about certain things here. They normally do reviews after actions occur, and then they tell you if it's right or wrong. So they weren't really comfortable really with telling me tonight about the quorum, but they did ask. But I have regularly emailed them. My one email that in a response was actually diverted, and somebody deleted it from my township email because I never got it. But again, I digress. You normally put those in writing when I email them to ask. So that's the extent of what help they've been able to provide. Outside of this other attorney, that, you know, I got an
Yeah.
opinion from, and I'm obviously just not gonna keep spending my personal money getting opinions from another attorney. So that's the extent of what I can do.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I want to emphasize something you made. You contacted the Attorney General, and they informed you that it's not a problem to have this type of a format, correct?
It's not a problem to have a forum, yeah.
Everybody should listen to that, because the AG confirmed it was okay to do it. Your legal counsel said, oh no, we can't do public comment last time.
At the last meeting.
And that's not right.
And,
You absolutely can do what you're doing right now.
and I did advise everybody in that group, and anybody here, if you had comments last week that you felt you were not able to have addressed, you can feel free to send an email to the Attorney General's office. They have a public access officer that will give an opinion. Again, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus. If they get 20, 25 requests that the public comments are not being allowed at a meeting, don't you think that there's going to be more notice? That is what I said tonight when somebody tried to cancel this meeting. I said to Mr. Spina, the Attorney General's office has already put us on notice that they are watching everything that we are doing. So if you all had a question or a comment last week that did not get addressed, feel free to email that to the Attorney General's office, because again, until the public speaks up, there is only so much that 2 trustees can do, because per the law, you gotta have at least quorum, you gotta have at least 3 people. That protects everybody, so neither one of us can run rogue and just do whatever it is we wanna do. You have to have a meeting of the minds. You can't have a meeting of the minds if you don't have at least 3 trustees present. Are there any other questions? Any other questions?
Thanks for not calling the police.
Any other questions?
They're out in the front.
Okay, I'm not adjourning any meeting because we ain't have any meeting. You're free to stay, you're free to go, but I'm sure somebody wants to lock up or something.
Yeah, we gotta be back here.